Hi, I'm Andy Cocktail Dress from Co-op Culture, and welcome to another in our series of short instructional videos for co-ops, community businesses, and their development workers. This series of videos, we're looking at how you might create detailed financial projections. And at the moment, we're generally looking at how you organize your work and how you make either the outputs of the spreadsheets be easier to use, the spreadsheets themselves easier to use, or how you make things simpler to understand. In this particular video, we're going to be looking at my recommendations for formatting numbers, and how you can make your spreadsheets look less cluttered, more professional, and also just easier to understand by following certain conventions and by not using other ways of formatting numbers. So to start with, I would say we shouldn't really be generally using the currency format. We don't need to have the symbol for the currency, whether it's a pound sign for pound sterling or a dollar sign if you're doing some work in America, or the euro sign or whatever, in front of every number, because that makes things look really cluttered and makes it very, very, very difficult when we've got lots of numbers for us to see the actual numbers, which is what we're more interested in. So generally, we know we're working in sterling or whichever currency you're working in. If you are working in more than one currency, then it does make sense to put the currency symbol at the top of the column so you know what currency you're currently working in this column. And if you've got a combination of different types of numbers in a sheet, then it does make sense to say, okay, this is currency, this is pounds, pound sterling, so we're going to have a pound sign. These are percentages. These are numbers of items, so therefore we don't want a pound sign, and that makes it really easy for us to work out what number goes in what place. But when we're having a long list of numbers, which are all pound sterling, it's really complicated. It really clutters up the spreadsheet if you put a currency symbol in front of all of them. And in general, I mean, I know this isn't always the case, but pretty much most of the time, we're not interested in pence. We're doing financial forecasts. The pence, the accuracy of our forecasts is going to be not in the pence. Yeah, we're going to be probably out in the pounds, possibly out in the hundreds of pounds, and even the thousands. We might still be out slightly. So there's no point us having pence, and again, it just clutters everything up. So just to show you a couple of examples, here, because what we're doing is we're showing that some of these things are actually percentages, some of these things are currency, then it is worth us having these separate, actually having the currency in them. But if we were to look at this long, large amounts of numbers, or here, so if we put the currency sign in front of all of these, it would look really, really cluttered. So currency sign at the top to tell us that we are using pound sterling. These is all supposed to be representations of pound sterling. But if I turn all of these too far, if I turned all of these into currency format, and then scrolled along. This is a much harder spreadsheet for us to understand. Everything looks much more cluttered. It's very difficult for us to see what's going on. Yeah. So because of that, it's a lot easier if we don't use the pound sign, if we don't use the pence, because we're not particularly interested. So that's a lot easier for us to see what's going on. When we're formatting negative numbers, we need to make it very clear that it is a negative number. So if you're using a minus sign to indicate that this is a negative number, make sure it is next to the number, not on the other side of the cell. So I received some work from a client who had got an accountant to produce some forecasts for them. Now, as you can see here, this is a negative number. This is minus 18,206. But that's zero. So when this is printed out and you don't have these dividing lines in, dividing up the cells, it's very difficult to see that that's not supposed to be minus 673. That's zero. That's 673. That's 673. That's minus 18,206. And where the minus sign sits and whether it sits next to the number or not. So you have to be very, very clear if you're using a minus sign to imply a negative number, that the minus sign sits next to the number. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, because of this problem, I don't recommend that you do that at all. The other thing, so there are three ways of indicating a negative number by convention. One is to put a minus sign next to it, and the problem with that is whether or not it is next to the cell, next to the number, and not, perhaps justified, and so it's on the other side of the cell. And just make sure it's very clear which thing is the negative number. Another approach is to use red. The problem with using red is that as soon as you print it out, if you're using a black and white printer, then you've lost that information automatically. You've just lost all of the red, and therefore you do not know which of these are positive or negative numbers. Now, when you're producing a set of financial forecasts and you have to go back to thinking who's going to use them, what's the final audience, well, often they are going to get printed. Yeah. And then if they are printed, the red doesn't work. So the convention is that you put parentheses round negative numbers. Yeah. And that's generally, it makes it very clear because the number is surrounded by the parentheses. So you know it's that number and not another number that's next to it. And you don't lose that information when it gets printed out. So as you can see here, these are all negative numbers. Because they're overheads and we're subtracting them, or we would be subtracting them, we're actually summing a negative number, which is in effect subtracting. And that then makes it very clear which is a negative and which is a positive number. Another thing to think about when formatting is how do you format zeros? So it can be really confusing if you leave lots of blank spaces in your spreadsheets. If you have a line that says something, but because there's no information going into that line, into that row or column. If you leave a blank space, it is then unclear as to whether or not you've finished, whether the spreadsheet is finished, whether or not this is a space that you're leaving for data to be added later on, which you'll see we often do that. And actually, what you need to know to do is say, okay, there is something in this space, but the thing that's in this space is zero. So, for instance, if we go back to this spreadsheet, and this is a classic example. We've created a generic cash flow sheet, which has all these potential changes in operating cash flow. So there are potential changes in the amount of tax that we owed, or whether or not we need to add community shares interest or back into our operating cash flows to move it between different years. If we left all of those cells blank, we wouldn't know whether or not we have to still go back and add things. So you tend to put a zero in, but if I did put lots of zeros in, and I'm just going to highlight all these cells and reformat them. So they have got zeros in, then this can look really quite cluttered and it makes it quite difficult to see, especially if there's lots and lots of zeros in things. So we tend to not do that. And the convention is to put a hyphen in the place where zeros are. Now, please don't write a hyphen because then when you're trying to when you're trying to sum those cells, you want your spreadsheet program to view it as zero, but you just need to format that cell so that it is a hyphen. So these do in effect say zero. So we can then add them. We can sum things together, but it's expressed and formatted as a hyphen. To create this convention, there is a standard number format that you should be using, which is definitely the case in Excel, Google Sheets, LibreCalc, and probably iNumbers, but I don't know. I don't know about iNumbers. And it's this sort of hashtag, comma, hashtag zero underscore, close parentheses, semicolon, open parentheses, hashtag, comma, hashtag zero, close parentheses, semicolon, hyphen. And so what you want to do is, so I'm just going to remove all formatting from this, from this. Format cells. I'm actually just going to format them as something random, something else. That's probably the easiest way to do it. So I'm going to format everything as currency, which is what I said you shouldn't do earlier. And as you can see, it's really messy. There's both red, lots of 0.00 with a it's very difficult to see the information that you want. So to format it in the way that I'm recommending and what the convention is, so you sort of highlight all the cells that you wish to have formatted. Either use the Format Cells menu or right-click Format Cells. And then the tab that we want is the Numbers tab. And you could just type in the formula that I sort of showed you in the last screen. So hashtag, comma, hashtag zero, underscore, nope, underscore, semicolon, hashtag, open parentheses, hashtag, comma, hashtag zero, close parentheses, semicolon, hyphen. And if you type that in the format code space, then it will automatically format your numbers in the format that is the convention and is the format that I am recommending. So that was this video on formatting numbers in our series on creating detailed financial projections. I hope you liked this video. I hope you found it useful. If you did like this video, please click the like and subscribe buttons. If you want to be notified when we upload more short instructional videos for co-ops, community businesses, and their development workers, please hit the notification bell. Thanks everyone for watching.